Hello and welcome to this episode of All Ears English. Today I interview Benjamin Dent from Holo. And Ben is going to show us why we need to implement a social layer in our learning, how it helps us learn so much faster. And he's going to give you 3 tips on exactly how to implement the social layer into your English learning. So go ahead and hit subscribe on this YouTube channel if you want more awesome interviews like this one, and let's get started. Hello, Ben. Welcome to All Ears English. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lindsay. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on this episode and talk about language learning.
Yes, it's all about language learning. We love language learning. But first, tell us where you're from. And I mean, you are in a neighboring state or a very close state to where I am. Where are you from, Ben? And what is it like?
Yeah. So I'm in Utah right now, and pretty cool place. It's part of the Rocky Mountains. We have lots of currently right now we're finishing the winter season, so we're getting the last of skiing and snowboarding in for the year, and the warm weather is already starting to peak. And
Excellent.
so I think spring has been a nice warm welcome here, but also followed by extremes. It snowed again, after it was, really warm last week, and then we got 2 feet of snow, and then now it's back to, in the mid 60s. So
Y-
uh,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I know about those extremes. Absolutely. So, guys, just to formally introduce Ben today, we have Benjamin Dent on the show from Holo. And Holo is a live streaming language learning community that starts with the social layer, which I think is so important. As we are social beings, we need to start with the social layer. So, we'll talk a little bit more today about what that actually means. And today, Ben, what are you going to show our listeners when it comes to using the social aspect to learning? What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lindsay. So I think there's a few things that are important when you kind of put together a social layer in your language learning, your own personal plan. And it's really important before we start to know that everyone might have a different plan.
Yeah.
And so some people might like different things. Some things might stick, and for others, it might not. However, I think the 3 things I want to talk about today can be applied to all plans
Hmm.
because they focus on the practical expression of language learning, which
I,
is speaking. And
yeah.
some of those are, like asking students to practice
Okay.
and, maybe
Okay.
form a study group, setting goals together,
Yeah.
and then giving back in the process.
Excellent. So we're going to go through each one for our listeners here today, but I just want to say I think that your philosophy is really in line with what a lot of our listeners want and need at this stage in their learning, right? They are upper intermediate, advanced learners. They are ready to move to that full fluency, guys. So listen up today to what Ben has to say, because this is so crucial to our progress and to connection, which is really the end game. The connection, not perfection. That's what we're going for. And connection is inherently social. So, Ben, tell us what the first thing is that we need to think about when we implement that social layer. What is your first tip for our listeners?
Great question. And I love that connection over perfection. That really is the true spirit of learning. And
Totally.
so that's what we try to do a lot at
Yep.
Hollow. So
Love it.
one way that we can actually do that and help overcome some of those barriers of fear is through asking people to practice. And I know that can be tough, but think of it as having a good friend that you can rely on, or a group of friends that you always talk about life with.
Okay.
Those people are people you can count on,
Yeah.
and you look up to them. They cheer you up on the bad days, right?
Sure.
So similarly, meeting new people and making friends that share similar interests, that's typically really exciting for us. And finding those individuals can be difficult. So we have different things like Facebook and apps like maybe Holo or other sorts of community-based apps where you can find friends to practice with that share similar interests. And so in the end, we just need to take a step out of our comfort zone and be
Sure.
courageous,
Okay.
send someone a message. And so it could be simple, it could be more personal, but just the most important part here is just to be genuine when you
Okay.
reach out to people, and
Yes.
and send them ask them like, hey, you start with something interesting, and
Yeah.
then say, hey, I'd love to, I'm looking for a practice partner to improve X, Y, or Z. It could be I'm preparing for the to improve my TOEFL or IELTS
Sure.
speaking score.
Yeah.
or I'm just trying to, maybe improve my business English so I can get a raise or whatever it may be. And you'd
Yeah.
be surprised how many people will respond. Some won't, but don't take that as an offense. And that's all right. Continue
Okay.
to put yourself out there and ask for people and slowly build your network. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you're going to have your own personalized classroom of your best friends to learn together.
Yeah, I love that. So a lot of our listeners are always looking for quote unquote native speakers to practice with. So, but what is your philosophy on that, Ben? Is it okay just to practice with other English learners, right? Other listeners of the show or members of the community? Or do we really need to always be practicing with native speakers? What do you think? I'm
That's a
curious.
great question.
Yeah.
For years, I streamed on social media as
Hmm.
kind of like I guess you could say, an English teacher influencer.
Okay.
And so I learned a lot about what people are worried about, what people care about, and
Yeah.
when it comes to learning English. And one of those common fears was, hey, like I need to have a native speaker like with
Right.
me all the time. And that's understandable,
Yeah.
right? And that's fair because let's say I wanted to move to a different country and
Hmm.
just be fully immersed and learn the language, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be around people that speak that as natives, right? And so it's a fair, it's logical to assume like, hey, I need a native speaker.
Right.
However, what's beautiful now is that we have technology that can create digitally immersive experiences, like
Yes.
live streaming, something that we do at Holo, and we're firm believers of creating this new way of social interaction and combining that element with language learning. And what we found is that once people start connecting over shared interests and
Yeah.
passions, their fear starts to slowly disintegrate.
Sure.
And then they realize that, oh, wow, I didn't really need a native.
Yes.
I might need a native for some things, but I
Yeah.
just need to practice expressing my thoughts and thinking in the language.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. And the idea of finding what you have in common with that other English learner, that other human being, right? Leading with that, finding those commonalities. It's not about who's the native speaker and who's not. It's not about always getting corrected. It's about finding those social commonalities. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. Okay, Ben. Awesome. So I love that. And what would be your second tip for our listeners on how to utilize this community? Maybe once we've found it, what should we be doing to really use it to take our English to that next level? What do you think?
Cool. Yeah, I like it. Think of it like learning a new language is like going to the gym for the first time. It's
Sure.
going to suck. And sometimes it can just seem like you're going to be sore, mentally sore. It might hurt your ego. It might just seem like you'll never be able to pick it up, right? But that's why you go with your friends because you don't think about yourself. So as you start continue to set goals, like, hey, let's go 2 times a week, and you can up the intensity, right? Little by little, these small baby steps are actually super important. And science actually shows that if you set small attainable goals and you slowly work on improving,
Hmm.
you have a high level of what to expect, but
Interesting.
you kind of do it over time. It's a much more effective learning method, and it's easier to consolidate what you're learning and be able to recall it.
Very
And
cool. Very
I'm
cool.
sure there's many people in the audience that are like, man, I can never remember or retain what I'm learning. And so science shows that setting goals is really important and working together. And so there's two things that are beautiful about group learning specifically, or
Mhm.
just and group could be two people or it could be more, right? And so one is that it eases the social burden, which I kind of discussed as the going to the
Yep.
gym example. And then number two, it improves your brain's ability to recall that information. And so this will help you unlock your fullest potential. But most importantly, as long as you're aligned with your visions, like, hey, this is what I want, this is what you want, and this is what we're working towards, and you write these goals out. I'm a big believer in writing goals out,
Mhm.
visualizing them, putting them on your phone and your app or wherever that works for you.
Yep.
Those are good because there's going to be moments that come that you're going to lose motivation and you're going to feel overwhelmed, and those are actually some of the most, I think, authentic moments to
Yeah.
practice with your friends, because learning a language is very much about thinking and feeling in that language. And when there's
Yes.
powerful emotions associated with what you're learning, your
Mm.
brain's ability is actually improved, and it's improved in encoding and learning that information. So you actually learn it
Right.
more effectively.
I
So
love that. We've seen that, right? You said, I mentioned before, you have some experience in neuroscience and in neuro pathways, that kind of thing. Is that right? I mean,
yeah, I
that's,
did a lot of genetics and neuroscience research as an undergraduate.
I love that. It is so true. When we are activated emotionally, whether it's a low or a high or whatever it is, whatever is created around people, we do absorb that information more. And that is why sitting in a classroom with a textbook, being bored, what our listeners have done their whole lives has not worked. Right, that's why we need we need a new solution. I love this. That is
Absolutely.
so good, Ben. All right, awesome. So let me just ask you a follow-up question on the setting goals piece. So
Yeah.
in our groups, whether it's groups of 2 or groups of 10, are we all setting the same goal, or are we just setting our own goals and benchmarks and sharing them? What is the key there?
That's great. So I think being aligned is important, but I do believe there is some hybrid kind of forms that can happen here. For example, let's say that one person has been really enjoying singing to music on their own when they just want to read the subtitles, and maybe I hear it's a really popular method for many people.
Cool. Yeah.
And let's say the other person would rather maybe watch movies and then practice, would pause it and practice mirroring how that person said something.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's just use two examples of different form. That can still translate into the same overarching goal of improving my speaking and pronunciation. So whatever works for you
Mhm.
can be good. Now that's time outside, like when you're not together. When you're together, though, I think it's important to be studying the same goals and to be
Okay.
or to be having the same material.
Okay.
And so I think it just depends if you're together or if you're not together. It's
Mm.
going to be easier and there's going to be less friction when you're
Mhm.
studying together and you're all on the same page. And that way, if someone's having a problem in trying to like understand something, it's very likely that one of the group members found a way to understand it. And then that person can share it with the group. And then they're like, aha, right? The aha
Yeah.
moment. It's like, that was helpful.
That's
So I think being aligned is important, sharing and following the same framework, which means following the same things when you're
right.
with each other. And then outside of it, supplement it with additional
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah. And I'm sure that science also proves that this idea, if we take ownership over how we know we like to learn for the outside times, outside of the social circle, then we'll also learn better. There's an element of leadership that we need to lead our own learning to some extent, especially as adults, right? We're not kids here. Teachers
Yeah.
can tell kids what to do, but for adults, we need to take some ownership there. So I like that blend of leadership and ownership, and then community when we come together. But
Yeah.
we're always reporting out our goals, right, to the group, whether it's inside or outside. I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharing there.
Yeah. Both. Yeah.
That's huge.
Very
Okay.
good.
I love it, Ben. All right. So, what would be your third and final tip for our listeners on how to activate this social layer for themselves?
Yeah, that's great. So the I would say the last step there is to give back. And what this specifically means is there's going to be moments like giving back could be helping a teammate. Simple. Like I know that learning can become selfish, and it is partly
Mm,
selfish and it's partly collective. It's more individual and collective, and there's a balance to be drawn. And everyone has a different learning style. Some people might just want to be alone, and some people might prefer a group. The
mm,
most important thing, though, is to remember that it's really important to look up to people and know that they can help you. And you
mm.
typically, just like you want to surround yourself with good people, friends that believe in you or that you share similar interests, right? So
Yeah.
so now going back to how this is applies to language learning is you'd be so surprised of the things that you can help other people with even when you're a beginner or learning English.
Hmm.
So many occasions I've seen in our community at Holo and outside, just on Facebook groups and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
that people, just other learners ask other learners, and so many times they were able to help them, and that's really edifying because it builds this very positive feedback system
Yeah.
it's more like rooted in self-efficacy. Like I believe in myself, and whoa, I just helped that person. That
Yeah.
confidence has a carryover effect that really like applies to learning going forward, and I think it can really help. So think outward
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when you're learning a language, and you'd be surprised about the benefits that come back your way. And remember, there's going to be a lot of people that always reach out to you And so it's important to remember that when you were once a beginner, or when you first sent out some messages to people to ask them to practice, you know, return the favor, and give them some of your time, and remember what it's like to be in their shoes. And even if maybe it doesn't fit, maybe you're at different levels, maybe help them and give them some tips on how you found your first few practice partners or first classes or tutors, and what you did to become fluent and make all that progress. And that can go a long ways.
Yeah, I love that. That is so key, right? It takes us out of our own heads. I think a lot of one of the places our listeners may get stuck sometimes is in that self-consciousness in our own minds, right? We're so focused inward. What am I saying wrong? What are the mistakes I'm making? But what if you were actually practicing by helping someone else? That would completely change. It would drop that self-consciousness, and all of a sudden you are still practicing your English, but you're able to do it in a more free way. So that's the other piece. I mean, we think about this for ourselves. If we're feeling low or something, maybe we go and volunteer, help build a house, or volunteer at a soup kitchen, or literally volunteering. It does take us out of that place and puts us in another place of gratitude and the feeling of, I guess, connection is what it comes back to, right, Ben?
Yep. Yeah. In the end, I think implementing the social layer is about connecting, and we're
Yeah.
social creatures. And
Yeah.
I think we have an innate desire to connect with others. And I think that's part of the beauty of learning languages, or learning additional languages.
Yeah.
Is the ability to connect and to learn about people. There's a story, and so every person has a book but we get to read it via audio, and we get to hear it from their point of view, and it's kind of cool. So if you think about it that way, there's lots of stories to be read, and when we connect with people, we gotta fill that journey of learning language with all these cool memories and stories that won't make it seem like a challenge or a chore to wake up and study. It won't make it seem like a challenge to go to class,
Yep.
because you're focused on other things that are fulfilling and edifying.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. A new and better way, right? So that is really what you guys are tapping into at Holo. So tell us a little bit about what you've built, what you're working on over there, what is available for students, and how they can find it. Let us know. It sounds really cool.
Yeah. So as you said in the beginning, we're a live streaming community for language learning. What that means is you can go, think of it as like combining social media meets language learning, and
Yeah.
kind of like Twitch or something like that. And so, you can get friends and followers on it, and you can go live with your friends when you want to practice, and your friends will be notified. You can hang out. You can also watch various live stream videos from teachers around the world, and you can follow them. You can subscribe to them if you want more exclusive or like no blacked out content.
Hmm.
You can get a private lesson, and something we're launching soon as well is courses. And it's going to be like the funnest digital classroom of like very awesome students that we're going to help find you with only 4 people. So really small classroom. So focus on a lot of interaction,
Hmm.
but we're adding a lot of cool technology for real-time speech assessment evaluation. So when
Yeah.
you're on Holo, we're always going to be able to like help address how you're speaking, how like your scores and pronunciating. These are some things we're looking forward to get into.
I
And
love
then
it.
we have a few other speech assessment tools to help you evaluate your speech at the
Excellent.
end of the session, at the end of a course, which is about 8 1-hour sessions right now. It lasts about a month. And
Okay.
so, but yeah, so that's kind of what we are. And we really, we're here to help people, celebrate fluency and have fun in the
Yeah.
process. And
Hmm.
we want it to be attainable and affordable for everyone. We don't want it to be a very expensive,
Yeah.
exclusive service. We're really here to try to democratize these opportunities to everyone around the world.
I love it. I love it. So good. A different platform with a different philosophy, starting with a social layer, guys. I recommend that you go and check out Holo. What is the website, Ben, where they can find you?
Yeah. Website is holo.tv. And so, yeah, and then you can also just Google us too. Our app is both in Android and App Store. And our new web app is holo.video. So,
Okay.
kind of newer age endings on the websites. And so, holo.video is our web app now that we launched. And so, you can now experience Holo on both the web, your desktop or laptop, and then also on your phone. So,
Excellent. And could you spell Holo for us just to make
yeah,
sure that our listeners know? Yeah.
yeah, HALO. HALLO.TV. And then that other one, video would be VIDEO, HALLO.
Excellent. Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for coming by today. This has been a great conversation. I do think you're really onto something in terms of what we need with learning a language, right? Let's try a new way. The old way is not working. So this is the way to connect people and learn together. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye.
Same. Bye.